hand.
Okay, so let's break all of this down.
Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, start at the very beginning. Tony Ferguson drops out because of a knee injury. Max Holloway steps in to take his place. That's where we left off.
And we thought that was insane. It's like this is the fourth time that Khabib versus Tony Ferguson has been canceled and scratched. And then Max Holloway steps in, 145-pound champ on 6 days' notice. We're talking about how insane that is.
Right.
And like I just said, we wouldn't have even foreseen what was about to happen. So that's just the start of things. There's this whole April Fool's aura around this replacement of having Max Holloway step in. Everybody thought it was an April Fool's joke. Nobody could believe it. Turned out to be true. Max Holloway steps in, and then on Tuesday, this is where it began during fight week. So Tuesday, Khabib Nurmagomedov confronts Artem Lobov because Artem was talking some mad shit about Khabib. I think whether it was an interview or he posted a video about it or something like that. It was a while ago, but Khabib confronted him about it, and Khabib was saying, "So you think I'm this? Blah blah blah." And Artem was like, "No, not at all." So he kind of sunned him real hard.
Yeah,
but people were
there was some grabbing of the back of the head.
There was
during the conversation.
There was. I do think Khabib slapped Artem Lobov in the face as well. So he really sunned him hard. But the controversy behind that was that Khabib had like his Russian mob with him, just about. And, it was like 20 guys surrounding Artem Lobov. But at least it didn't escalate the way Conor McGregor retaliated.
And so, I kind of have an idea about this, but for people who are listening, because I didn't know until I did a little more research, what is the significance of this Artem Lobov guy? Like what crew does he belong to, and why was this so significant?
Artem Lobov should not be in the UFC, actually, at all. The guy is a 500 fighter, meaning I think his record's like 14-13 or something like that. It's really bad. The only reason he's in the UFC is because he's Conor McGregor's training partner. So that's the connection to this entire thing. Right. Yeah, so, I mean, in all honesty, Artem Lobov shouldn't even be he's not a UFC caliber fighter. One of the only reasons he's still in the UFC and has any attention at all is because he trains with Conor McGregor. But it's funny to a lot of the MMA community because the MMA community knows that Artem Lobov is not a UFC caliber fighter. So that's why he gets all the attention, because he's made fun of so much, because he's connected to Conor, and they know the only reason he's in the UFC is because, or at least the main reason, let's be honest, he is in the UFC is because of Conor McGregor. So that is his connection to this entire thing. So and Artem, I feel like people who train with Conor and are around him just kind of pick up on his persona, because he does have a very
infectious sort of.
Yes, that's the word. A very infectious persona to be around. Like, you've seen guys like one of the jiu-jitsu training partners that Conor McGregor has. His name is Dylan Danis. And I mean, he's like a carbon copy of McGregor. He tries so hard to be McGregor. So Artem, kind of talks some shit here and there now, or a lot, honestly. And he was bad-mouthing Khabib. So that's when Khabib just confronted him in person and settled it man to man. Khabib did have his Russian mob with him, but he kind of just walks around with them anyway, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's common, especially on fight week, too.
Oh, absolutely. But, that was their thing. It's like, why would you, run up on a guy when he doesn't have anybody on him?
Yeah.
When you got, like, all of these guys behind you. Like, he's not going to do nothing.
But Khabib in fight week is never going to be on his own anyway. So there's no other way that if this interaction is going to happen, it's going to happen with Khabib having his crew with him. It's just inevitable.
Absolutely.
So I don't see that as, I don't think that the gang being there was an attempt to be intimidating. He's just there for fight week with his coaches, his trainers, his friends. It's a bad optic. It looks bad, but
right. No, I completely agree.
It's not how it was perceived.
And what was also rumored beforehand was that if Khabib saw Artem Lobov in like the locker rooms or whatever, the hotel, whoever, if they passed by each other, that Khabib was going to confront Artem. Like, it was going to happen. And Khabib happened to be with his people. He saw Artem and confronted him. And it was simple as that. And then Conor McGregor shows up after. So that was Tuesday, right? The press conference happens on Wednesday. After the press conference happens, Thursday is media day. Everything for the most part is in order. Actually, the day before, Dana White was asked, is Conor going to be, at the Barclays Center for the fight? And he said no. I mean, it would be awesome if Conor McGregor came, but he's not coming. And it turned out to be horrible after that.
Right.
But so media day happens. It was a crazy thing about this because he ended up fighting in the main event. Iaquinta did not. You know how at media day, all of the fighters have their own signs next to them.
Yeah.
When the media comes up and interviews them and everything. Al was the one person that didn't have a sign. Apparently, Anthony Pettis had 2 of them. They accidentally printed 2 for Pettis.
Nice.
And didn't have one for Al, of course. So he drew himself a sign that said "Rage and Al" and put it behind him on the curtains or whatever, or the wall, and it was absolutely hilarious.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but so we thought that was going to be the biggest story of the day. End of media day happens. That's when Conor and his little entourage come, and they apparently the Mac Life crew, who is Conor McGregor's little media company that I guess they're accredited to do or they're credentialed to do the UFC events and everything. So apparently a member or a number of members from the Mac Life crew let Conor McGregor and his entourage into the building. And that's when shit just went haywire.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was trying to get there before the end of media day. And honestly, that probably would have been an even bigger scene. Maybe he wouldn't have gotten in trouble, but he gets there when they're loading onto the bus, and he's asking where the red corner bus is or where Khabib is. So whoever the security team is should have probably stopped him before he even got there. But apparently, they were leading him towards the bus because they just thought, oh, it's Conor. What is he doing? I don't really know. Sure, he's that way. So probably think he's just gonna do something to try to promote possibly a future fight with Khabib or whatnot. So he gets there. They're all loading the bus, and then that's when shit just gets out of hand.
Right. So just to back up, one, Khabib is fighting at this point in time, and still ended up to be fighting for the title that is going to be vacated by Conor McGregor upon victory. Whoever wins this fight, at the time we were still thinking it's Max Holloway. That's one check. Number 2, now he just sunned Conor McGregor. Khabib sunned Conor McGregor's training partner. So that's kind of what was already brewing. And I kind of figured Conor was going to have something to say about, he was going to make his presence felt since it was his belt being lost, and he's just that kind of guy, right? He just sees himself as the champ in any situation. So I kind of had a feeling something was going to happen. I don't know who could have predicted what ended up happening. So then the bus rolls in,
or the bus is trying to roll out. The bus is leaving the Barclays Center and going back to the hotel.
I was under the impression it was coming in.
No, it was going out because media day had just finished up. So the bus was leaving, going back to bringing the fighters back to the hotel. And as it was about to leave and back out, that's when Conor ran in through the damn dolly, through the window of the bus. Right. This was so unnecessary.
And this bus had
all of the
Khabib, Rose Namajunas. We now know Michael Chiesa, Ray Borg.
Yep.
Who else was on there?
All of the red corner fighters.
Yeah.
So Zabit Magomed-Sharipov, Iaquinta was, because he was originally supposed to fight Paul Felder. Of course, he ended up fighting Khabib in the main event. He was in the red corner when he was scheduled to be in the red corner for his fight against Paul Felder. And that's why he was in the bus too. So Anthony Pettis, Michael Chiesa was in the bus. So Michael Chiesa got cut up and had to be pulled out of his fight against Anthony Pettis.
Let me ask you something real quick. Because I don't know the ins and outs of, especially the behind the scenes stuff. And I'll get to why this is important later, but is it common for all of one corner's fighters to be on the same bus? Or was it just that it's the Barclays Center, it's in Brooklyn, high traffic area? Because it was always my impression that fighters rolled in on their own time, but maybe I'm just thinking about fight day and not media day.
No, I think media day, because the fighters, I want to say they stay in a certain hotel that the UFC of course pays for, so they take a bus that the UFC of course provides and everything. And I'm assuming they bring, for most of the events, I'm assuming this is true, I'm not 100%, but I'm assuming they take all the red corner fighters and all the blue corner fighters separately, so they don't, they're not always in the same area, where they're fighting and everything. So I'm assuming that's typically the case.
Then if that is the case, that seems to be kind of a liability. Say that the thing got in an accident, you know what I mean? Like, or, some crazy fans try to get on the bus or whatever. Like, it just seemed like a real lack of security for that to be half of your fighters for that fight card. And big names, too, right? Like, that, so it just seemed weird that all the fighters were all on the bus together, which maybe that's how it goes every time. Like I said, like I'm new to this. And then two, just if that's the case, then where's all the security?
Right. No, I think security is the biggest part because I think they led Conor and his little entourage, and it was through like the top of the Barclays Center all the way going down to the bottom. That's what I believe it was. Yeah. So they led him there.
Yeah, that's crazy. It just seemed like a huge breakdown.
Utter breakdown. So chaos happens, right?
Yeah, so then what happens?
So Michael Chiesa has to pull out of his fight with Anthony Pettis.
Oh, no, I mean, like, so Conor's got looked like 20 dudes with him.
Yeah, about 20 plus dudes or whatnot. They all roll in. They start throwing shit at the bus.
And we only know this because there were people back. Well, one, I think the embedded crew was there following Khabib.
No, it was not the embedded crew. They actually got that film from somebody else. So it was just.
Well, it was HD footage. So it was somebody had a.
Yeah, I think Khabib has a little something that he films for himself, a little crew himself. Yeah, so I think just a crew was behind Khabib.
Yeah,
filming what was going on, and then they had the separate footage from inside, and then they had the footage from outside, and I think. I'm not sure if all of it was from
because a lot of it was, or some of it was from cell phones too.
Yeah,
like people
absolutely.
had their cell phones out.
Yeah, but they had like close-up videos of Conor throwing the dolly through the bus, through the window, shattering everything, and then he tried to throw, I think, a chair or something else, and he picked up like what was it?
Like a guardrail?
Yeah, a guardrail. Yeah. He picked that up too and ran over towards the bus with it. I was like, what is happening right now? So it was just...
What was your first thought when you were seeing this video?
He's an idiot. He is an idiot. Like, why would you do this?
My first thought was cocaine. I think I texted you, and I was like, does Conor do cocaine? But then I didn't...
I almost don't know. I don't think he was probably on something. Like, maybe he was probably drunk as shit, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if he was on coke because some people are different, obviously. Who the hell knows? But... I mean, he was super hyper, so he was acting almost like it.
Yeah.
But I don't think somebody that does cocaine could, like, just, I don't know. No. I could be completely wrong, but I'm not going to say he does or doesn't do it because I've seen very questionable videos of Conor McGregor in a club, like after his win against Mayweather, looking like he's drugged out of his mind.
Yeah.
So I know he does certain, I'm not that, I'm not that stupid, but, or I'm not that gullible, but... I don't know if he was on it at that point in time, but it was just he threw the dolly through the damn bus. He had his other members of his crew, throwing shit at the bus. They cracked the windshield of the bus, and Conor was like, "Break the windows!" in the video.
Yeah.
And he was like laughing as he was running away. Apparently, he punched or he assaulted a UFC executive multiple times, and he injured multiple UFC staff. And everything on site, like he not only affected the fighters that were competing that night, but he actually hurt plenty of the staff. And he's got, I think he had 3 assault misdemeanor charges, and he had 1 felony charge of criminal mischief. His bail was $50K, and he has a hearing in, I think, June. Mm-hmm. He probably won't serve jail time, I'm sure, but he turned himself in. He turned himself into custody late that night. Was released or not? He got
bailed out or something.
Yeah, he had his little he had to confront the judge and everything, and which lasted like 4 minutes or so, and then they walked him out. But yeah, there's he has a mugshot and everything. Mm-hmm. They walked him out in handcuffs. So, I mean, it was ridiculous. Like what was going through my mind is like, why would you do this? All you had to do, right? If you wanted to make any kind of appearance. All you had to do to get your name out there for this was go up there, like confront Khabib during media day, literally just make an appearance, not even do a couple interviews, just make an appearance, confront Khabib, get in his face, maybe have like a yell off and whatnot. Shit goes crazy, not out of hand. There's like, the UFC melee and stuff, all this stuff happens, that's in the media. That's fine. Do your thing. But as soon as you start throwing, he started throwing shit at a bus.
Right.
Glasses breaking everywhere. You're literally injuring fighters. Michael Chiesa had to pull out of his fight against Anthony Pettis.
Yeah.
And Ray Borg had cornea abrasions because of all the glass shuttering and getting in his eye.
And I understand because I didn't really grasp how bad the glass shatter was. But then when you watch the video of Michael Chiesa and he's standing up and he's just frozen because he doesn't want to move to shake any of the glass anywhere else than it already had been, you can see his whole hair, beard, everything was shiny. I mean, that thing, it shredded the glass, just little micro shards everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm even thinking if you take a deep breath, you might get glass down your throat. You know what I mean? It could have been way worse than it even was, too. It was super, super reckless on his part, on Conor's part.
Absolutely. And MMA fans, and more specifically Conor fans, are so oblivious to all of these potential possibilities that did end up happening, who you can get hurt really bad when glass is shattering all over the place. And multiple people got hurt very bad. Not very bad, but look, cornea abrasions are not something to joke about.
No.
People will say, oh, well, I saw Ray Borg in the video with glasses on and he was perfectly fine. You have to understand the damage that's done to your cornea, a small abrasions like that. If you get just a light bulb broken above you, it doesn't affect you. And some of the shards, really, just micro shards, you can't even see them if that's a word.
Right.
Gets in your eye, and it eventually affects you later on in the day. And it doesn't hit you right away, especially with all the adrenaline running and everything in that moment. You're not going to feel it right away. Your eyes are going to be
open. And these
open.
are fighters.
Yeah, and these are fighters
pain threshold is, he probably was oh, I'm hurt? Oh, shit, I didn't even know this.
So, that's life-changing stuff, possibly.
Right.
Hopefully it won't be. I don't think it will, hopefully. But that he wasn't even thinking of the potential consequences of throwing a fucking dolly through the bus glass window. I cannot wrap my head around the fact that he actually decided to go through with that. So Artem Lobov gets pulled out of the fight because he was involved in the whole thing. Dana White pulls him immediately. Michael Chiesa could not fight because of the cut that he had. There was glass in his face. A giant cut was opened up on his forehead, lacerations, and the commission would not let him fight. Ray Borg could not get passed by the commission either. He couldn't fight because of the damage to him. And it's not like these Conor McGregor fans are oh, these people are just trying to get Conor McGregor money. They're trying to sue. No, these people invested how much money in a training camp to go out and fight and with the intention of getting a win? They're not trying to steal off of this guy just to benefit off of the moment of stupidity from Conor. That's not what they're... look, they put an entire money's worth into a training camp. Mm-hmm. They're not going to do that. It just doesn't make sense. You're not going to likely make more off of that than you would fighting it. It's nothing guaranteed anyway.
Yeah.
So, look, the last thing anybody wanted to do was pull out of their fucking fight. Especially, you have to understand, when a fighter goes to a training camp, a lot of the times that's 8 to 10 weeks away from all of your loved ones. You're not just going to compete going to an event specifically to compete, and you're just going to take advantage of this moment and not try to fight. No, that's not going to happen. You could sue him anyway, whether or not you're fighting. They want to fight.
Yeah.
I just think that's so stupid. Why are you even considering oh, that's the reason these people pulled out of their fights? No, it's not. So Ray Borg has to pull out. Michael Chiesa has to pull out. Rose Namajunas is shaken up. She
that was something that cracked me up.
Why?
Somebody online was on Reddit, and people were just trading information about what happened and stuff, and the injuries that were suffered, and so they were Michael Chiesa, huge laceration to the forehead, ray bore, glass shards to the eye. Rose Namajunas, her chakras were really thrown off by the event, or something like that. It was so funny. It
Rose,
cracked me up.
I love Rose. She's so in her own head. She's like all about the mind and everything, and she's let anxiety get the best of her in the past, but it seems like she's kind of like conquered that. And they asked her at the press conference, like before the fight with Joanna, they're like, how are you approaching this fight with Joanna? She's like, I'm like a tree, man. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I love Rose so much. Trippy. She's awesome. Yeah, she was shaken up from everything. She considered pulling out of the fight, and that would have been a huge detriment to the card. Like, not only did you make because of your stupid actions, 3 fights fell through, not only because of that, but if Rose would have pulled out of the fight, you would have eliminated a title fight too. I would have been pissed out of my mind if Rose had to pull out of the fight. Like, you might as well just cancel the damn event at that point.
Right.
I feel like the UFC did consider canceling this thing. I mean, they got knocked down 4 fights because when Iaquinta stepped up to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov, they had to pull the Paul Felder versus Iaquinta fight. So Paul Felder and Anthony Pettis didn't fight. So they got knocked down from 13 fights to 9.
Yeah, so let's talk about that real quick too, because that is largely important as well. So
yeah, we've been ranting on this whole Conor McGregor thing.
Yeah, and it's all connected. You can't talk about one without the other. It's super weird how this all took place.
There's so much to cover since our last podcast. Like, this podcast might run a little longer than typically. So, I mean, there's so much to cover. So, Conor McGregor, does all of this shit, pays all these consequences, goes, ends up turning himself in, gets charged of all these things.
Meanwhile, Holloway and Khabib is still on, right? It's
somehow,
still supposed to be the fight.
I mean, this fight card is literally just cursed at this point.
Yeah.
So Max, we think all of the madness is over after the whole Conor McGregor shit. All these fights are canceled. We think, okay, nothing else can happen, right? Wake up the next morning. First thing I see, Max Holloway deemed medically unfit to fight against Khabib Nurmagomedov. And my heart just dropped at that point. I'm like, fuck everything.
Yeah.
Like, being an MMA fan right now is just absolutely horrible. Like, there's nothing good about this. Like, this is literally the most cursed card I've ever seen. I've never seen so many different things transpire and eliminate fights. Like, all of the events happen pre-UFC 223. I don't think I've ever seen so many fight cancellations last second, a day or two before the card. This was just the craziest thing I've ever seen. So Max Holloway all of a sudden can't compete. Now who they're looking to Anthony Pettis next. Anthony Pettis wants too much money, apparently. I don't know who to blame this more so on.
Because I saw just on Instagram, when they were talking about Anthony Pettis being an option for this. Well, first he couldn't make weight, right? Or not championship weight. He was 155.2 when he weighed in, right?
Correct, but he was I'm not sure if it's just for championship fights, but I know in at least Anthony Pettis' case, he had an additional 2 hours after he first weighed in at 155.2. So he had an additional 2 hours to just cut that 0.2, and I know he could have done it easily. Like, he used to he at least try to cut down to 145. He did it once. He couldn't make it the second time. His body gave out. He only had 2 fights at featherweight. But he used to cut all the way down to there. He could have definitely shut it off the 0.2, I believe. So I think he was trying to negotiate the fight, how much money he was going to make from the fight. And I'm not sure how much he was asking for, but apparently he was asking for too much. I'm not sure, at least according to the UFC, or at least reports saying that the UFC, and Pettis couldn't, get the deal because Pettis wanted too much money.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Pettis was asking for a legitimately unreasonable amount, or if the UFC was just being stingy. And here's the thing: I'm not sure if you want to get mad at Pettis or if you want to get mad at the UFC for this, because it's like, UFC, this is not the time to be stingy. You need a main event, and you've got Anthony Pettis willing to step up. That's your first choice. You got to pay the man if you're stepping him up. If he's stepping up again a title fight, I'm not sure if he did want just too much money though. I don't know what it was. Because when you look at it from Pettis' side too, that's your chance to be a world champion. You shouldn't be too stingy either.
Yeah.
You know, you guys should come to a...
Yeah, you got to skip a lot of fucking rankings to get up there.
Yeah, Pettis was ranked out of the top 10.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're asking for this fight on short notice, and you're given this opportunity. You're the first one to go to. And I understand you want to make your money, but if you are able to beat Khabib and you're the champ, you're making champ money.
Yeah.
So why not at least, you know, try? I mean... I'm not sure. So they tried Anthony Pettis. Apparently he wanted too much money. So we skipped to Paul Felder. Paul Felder, this was the most unbelievable thing I've ever heard from an athletic commission. They said Paul Felder was ranked too low to fight Khabib based off of the UFC's arbitrary ass rankings that are made by a small group of people, and the rankings contradict each other all the time. Like somebody who would like have knocked out a guy below them or above them will be ranked below them, and like they're just rankings that are made by a small group of people in the UFC. Like there is nothing. Paul Felder is a beast. Like Paul Felder is a knockout artist. He is a great striker. He had. I'm not going to say he would have beaten Khabib at all. I don't think he would have, but he would have put up a damn good fight. Like it wasn't so bad. Like the skill discrepancy wasn't that big enough for a commission to step in and say, no, you are not good enough to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov, basically.
Right.
And it was just, I couldn't believe it. I was like disgusted and like gutted for Paul Felder because that's a life-changing thing for him. He is a guy who's unranked in the UFC. Who knows? What if he pulled off a miracle and beat Khabib? That's a chance of a lifetime right there to win a UFC title. And, you know, you're just gifted the opportunity just like that. And a commission steps in and says, no, it's not safe to like schedule this, basically. It just blew my mind.
Wow. That is crazy. I didn't know that. I didn't even know he was an option.
Yeah, he was next after Pettis. They were going to schedule him versus
Pettis. I mean, to somewhat of an outsider, I mean, it does feel a little weird that, you know, it could... this was an unforeseeable circumstance, but that somebody completely unranked, as arbitrary as the rankings can be, that they might actually have a chance to get a title shot. It did seem a little strange because, again, I'm so high on like the merit system and like have you worked your way up. In my opinion, maybe at that point, yeah, you maybe think about canceling it more than scheduling what could potentially be a complete mismatch if you're only looking at the rankings, but not considering all of what you just mentioned,
right?
About how good he actually is.
When you look specifically at the rankings, I mean, George St. Pierre wasn't ranked at all when he fought Michael Bisping for a title shot.
Well, which was why I consider that a super fight more than...
Right, but I mean, if you're going specifically by the rankings, he wasn't ranked at all and never had a fight at middleweight. So the same New York State Athletic Commission, who's passing that? But you're allowing,
you
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody who has competed in the lightweight weight class for a good period of time is a skilled fighter, and like you're going to schedule. Remember Valentina Shevchenko versus I can't remember her name, Cachoeira.
Yeah, Cachoeira. Yeah,
yeah, and you just saw the mismatch there.
Yeah,
it wasn't even close.
I mean, maybe they were considering that though, because that was a fucking brutal.
That was, but
fight.
No, that should not have happened ever. No, like Dan Henderson, who's like 40-some years old, got a title shot against Michael Bisping a couple years ago. And I think he was ranked 13th. And it baffled me, like, beyond belief that you couldn't just, oh my God. Like, Paul Felder would not have, like, that's not an unsafe fight to schedule. It's like McGregor versus Mayweather. Mayweather is a 49-0 boxer. McGregor is making his boxing debut, but you're going to sanction that?
Yeah.
And you're not going to sanction Paul Felder versus Khabib? Don't even, nah. That's trash. That is the worst thing I've ever seen. So
speaking of, I want to talk about Mayweather too, because in some way he's related to all this shit too. Somehow.
No.
So just.
Are we talking about conspiracy theories?
Yeah, we'll get into.
Not
yet, because we haven't finished. So Paul Felder doesn't get the shot. So then we fall to
Iaquinta.
There we go.
So he gets the fight, and of course, he not only did he not get a sign at media day, but when they had like the impromptu press conference. Because the UFC did like their 25th anniversary big press conference after the weigh-ins, and were you able to see any of that?
No. I was out of town, just full disclosure. So I was only able to briefly see the fights and just a few of the embedded videos, and then just the main videos that hit the media, like Conor throwing the chair or throwing the dolly and that stuff. So
yeah, PJ had
I didn't get the deep cut this week.
No, he's been trying to play catch up right now because of his week. He had a fun little week out of town.
Yeah,
you bastard. Yeah, but you luckily didn't have to experience all the shit that I was paying way too much attention. I was just like
a real emotional roller coaster.
I'm paying attention to everything. Like my heart's breaking as each fight gets canceled. And Max Holloway gets to get pulled out, and then they won't do Pettis, and then they won't do Paul Felder. I'm just like, Khabib's not going to fight, is he? It's not going to happen. He does. He fights Iaquinta, and now we can finally, unless you want to, we can hit the conspiracy theory real quick, and then we can go into what actually transpired at UFC 223.
Okay, yeah. So we'll talk about the fights in another segment after this.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Oh, well, real quick, what I was getting at with Iaquinta accepting the fight, because we started talking about your vacation. Iaquinta signed for the press conference. You know how they have like the little fighter name tags like right in front of you at a press conference? They spelt his name wrong.
Jesus Christ.
Like they're just butchering this dude. Like they wouldn't give him a sign at media day, and then they spell his name wrong at the press conference to promote the fight last minute. So it was ridiculous.
Well, he definitely, whatever respect he didn't get before the fight, I'm sure he's going to.
He better have it now.
But so real quickly,
the conspiracy theory of Mayweather being connected to the Neanderthal McGregor.
So I was out of town, and on my drive home, I got the chance to listen to ESPN radio, which I don't watch ESPN anymore. I don't care. I think they're corny. I think they're a bunch of old dudes trying to sound like frat guys, like your best friend and stuff, and they just have these ridiculous personalities, and I just think it's so corny. So I'm driving, and I just threw it on, and I hear them talking about the whole McGregor debacle. And I hear them comparing it to WWE, which I did think at first there was some similarities there, but upon watching it and having a little depth of knowledge about the sport, I could tell that it wasn't just for show. And oh God, what did the guy say that pissed me off? So, he said this was a scheme to promote a fight that no one was interested in watching anyway.
BS meter. And where's your BS meter on that shit? Fuck out of here with that. No,
because
my God.
Okay, maybe at this point the Tony Ferguson option was out. So maybe some people lost a little bit of interest. But if you're not excited about just the Rose fight just Rose and Joanna fight, even if you're not as excited about the hype, you're still going to watch this pay-per-view. Whether you buy it yourself or maybe now you just maybe go to a restaurant that's showing it, you're still interested, in my opinion, if you're a fight fan of any amount.
Any magnitude. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm like, and then this is coming from a dude, no disrespect, you're a baseball dude. This guy talked for 45 minutes about a man's curveball before this. I'm sorry, baseball is the most boring sport I can imagine. And then in my opinion, we're talking about the most interesting sport, which is MMA. MMA shits on every other sport, in my opinion. That's why that's why I'm coming over from being a football fan, because I'm bored with it. MMA is my new true love as far as sports go, because it's the complete sport. You can't have any weakness in anything or you will die. The stakes in MMA are like no other sport. Maybe football and maybe hockey or something like that, or rugby. But besides that, you cannot compare to MMA's excitement just with that one factor. I
love it. I love MMA so much. I mean, I'm a big violence guy, and you are too.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons we love it. And it is a like no other sport are all of these fight cancellations going to happen last second, and nothing insane like this. Yeah. I don't know. It's like, this is such, it's rough to be a fan of it because of all of the drama that happens outside of the cage. But as soon as we get to the actual content of it, it's just, I can't get enough of it.
Yeah. Well, so this guy goes on to make these weird fucking connections between that this was not only a promotional stunt to boost UFC 223's pay-per-view buys, but it was a promotion for the potential upcoming McGregor-Mayweather MMA match.
Boo!
Because right after that, they play a clip of Mayweather saying that, you know me, I go back and forth, I retire, then I come back, I retire, then I come back. But if I do come back, the next time will be in an octagon. Those were his words. And
no, stop. No. Okay, whoever thinks this, whatever idiot actually decided to put this out on the airwaves needs to have a reality check of some sort. Look, people were injured. UFC executives were hurt. People like UFC staff, people who have never fought in their lives before, were affected by McGregor's tantrum. And fighters had to pull out and couldn't get their paycheck because of McGregor. Luckily, the UFC, for them, the UFC did pay them as they should have, because obviously it wasn't their fault that they had to pull out of the fight. And you know, they spent all that money on their training camp pre-fight. But and according to Paul Felder, and he was the only one that I heard, that he said that they were taking care of the guys who didn't fight. So they can, like, the UFC took care of them well. So that is a good thing. Hopefully that does hold true for all of the fighters. But livelihoods were affected by this. Like, this wasn't just some PR scheme to get McGregor's name back out there and promote this UFC event and try to get the UFC back on the map, because they haven't been talked about recently because Conor hasn't been fighting. Ronda Rousey is in the WWE now. John Jones is out. Brock Lesnar's in the WWE. Like, all of the George St. Pierre barely fights. Anderson Silva's way past his prime. All of their pay-per-view draws in the past aren't really competing anymore. So, you know, people that are idiots in the media like that will assume that something like this is transpiring, where like this was all just a big scheme for the UFC to get their name out there. I think is the most idiotic thing ever, because people, like, they're not going to injure all of these bystanders.
Right.
All of these casual people who are working for the UFC and don't have anything to do with this feud between Conor and Khabib. They don't have anything to do with it. Why would they be hurt as a result of, like, the UFC is going to promote their fight? That's how selfish they are, to stage this entire thing and have their own staff get hurt in the process. Like, they don't give a fuck that much. Like, about, you know what I mean? Like, that is the, like, how you are hired to talk about things. You're hired to talk about sports. You do not put your opinion in the airwave unless you have all of the information you believe you need to make a valid opinion. You need to get that shit fact checked. If you're going to go out there and talk about MMA that way, or whatever it may be.
I mean, this was an ESPN affiliate.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that's what irritates me. This isn't just some local, you know, radio station you picked up that happens to talk about sports. And you know what I mean? Like, this is ESPN is national.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's international. ESPN is international. That's how big they are.
I have to recant my statement. Baseball is not the most boring sport. Golf is.
Yeah, golf is pretty
And
boring.
they fucking talked the hell out about some golf, too. And I was just like, come
There you
on,
go.
dude. You're not equipped to talk about MMA if you're willing to talk that long about golf.
I agree with you. I mean, you shouldn't talk about MMA if you don't know anything that's happening. Like, all you've heard of, the only reason you know what MMA is because you heard of Conor McGregor. And if that's the only reason you know what MMA is, or because you saw Chuck Liddell compete back in the day, and you're a fan of Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey, and you think you should have a legitimate opinion on MMA, don't talk about it. If the only fighters you know are Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, and Brock Lesnar, don't talk about it at all. Like, Skip Bayless doesn't need to say a word about MMA. Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smith, all of these guys, Jalen Rose, everyone who has something to say about MMA needs to know more than like 20 fighters in order to have any type of opinion on it. Because at least at that point, it's like, okay, while you only know 20 fighters or so, at least I know that you've watched more than 3 UFC fights.
Yeah. Well, and I think their lack of knowledge is why they like attributed or projected that this was a PR ploy, because they didn't understand all the ramifications or all the things leading up to it. that maybe the MMA community picked up on, and they said, oh, this is why Conor McGregor was set off by this Khabib interaction. So then Conor McGregor comes and does this. He's already got the title loss on his mind. So yeah, he's more, triggered by everything. Then he goes to, and he does this thing, and then it sets a shockwave of like all these canceled fights and stuff. None of that shit got talked about unless you were an MMA fan or watching MMA specific media. But if you're looking at mainstream media, they think it's this weird conspiracy or that it was set up like some WWE backstory. And I swear to God, if this fucking entertainment company that took over Zuffa, if this really fucking is, or if that's the way they want to take this shit, is like doing more backstory and getting fighters to have drama before fight, I'm out. I'm done. Because I fucking watched, I was a huge WWF fan when it was WWF, WCW and all that shit. I loved it back when I was a kid, but I want real fucking fighting. That I don't even care if the two guys don't hate each other. Like, I don't mind real competition and sportsmanship like between fighters. That's some of my favorite part about it is like two men that just see eye to eye on everything can still go in there and compete like they want to kill the other person just because they're true fighters. It doesn't need extra drama to build any sort of animosity up. They should just be that way because they're fighters and they have something to prove. And like
you're interested in it because of their skill sets and because of how good they are, and because of how awesome they are inside of the octagon, rather than how much drama they cause outside of it. Like, you enjoy watching Anderson Silva because he's Anderson Silva.
Because he's a tactician. I don't give a fuck if he's mad at Chris Weidman. I don't give a, you know what I mean? Like,
or Chael Sonnen. Or,
whatever. Although he was fun to listen to.
He was fun to listen to. But Chael's like Chael was an elite fighter, don't get me wrong, but he was never really, he was close a couple times. He wasn't championship material. He never did win a UFC championship. And, he was one of their most paid, most watched, most paid attention to fighters because of all the shit he talked. It's just humans naturally are attracted to drama, and if there's some drama, more eyes are going to be on it. But if it's fake, if it's forced, like the Cody Garbrandt versus TJ Dillashaw trash talk is just so terrible, and I feel like it's so forced. It's like, why are you even trying? Like, don't trash talk unless you're good at it. I do not want to hear you talk trash unless you're good. So that's why I don't want the WWE factor into this. Conor can do it all day long because he's great at it. But if you're not good, I don't want to hear you talk shit. Colby Covington is the perfect example of terrible, terrible trash talk. Have you heard what Colby Covington has tried to say at all? You have to listen to some of his trash talk. He's like the biggest Chael Sonnen ripoff I've ever seen in my life. He is awful, dude. He is terrible. He tries so hard. You can tell it's not genuine. It's like, dude, you're a great fighter. Just be yourself.
Right.
So I hate the whole trash talking, drama aspect of it as well. Obviously, like in certain occasions, it can be fun here and there. And if you're good at it, please, by all means, do it. Or if the beef is real, great. Like, I love real beef, not fake forced beef.
Right, like some John Jones, DC.
I was
beef.
literally about to say that because the brawl they had back before their originally scheduled fight at UFC 178. Remember the weigh-in brawl where John threw a punch and everything? And it was insane. That was real, raw beef. It wasn't staged. They genuinely hate each other. They do not like each other. And beef like that is exciting to see, not beef that is forced. You talk shit every single fight. You start a beef with every single person, or at least you try. You can tell it's not genuine, and your trash talk isn't good. Beef needs to happen if there is actual dislike for both men. Both men dislike each other, or if you can talk shit like a Chael Sonnen or a Conor McGregor can. But other than that, I don't want it either. I want to watch legitimate fighters. So, yeah, anything where it's like, oh, this was staged, this was all set up so the UFC could get some views this weekend and some pay-per-view buys, you're talking out of your ass. You have zero information on the situation that you're speaking on. And please, next time before you speak on something like this, do some research. It would literally take maybe 5 to 10 minutes to do some genuine research on whatever you're talking about. Even if this is in regards to MMA or any other sport, honestly, do a little bit of research. 5 to 10 minutes of it would save you so much hassle, save you so much of all this, just all of this backlash. But obviously, the people are trying to do that too, so they can start something as well. Like Colin Cowherd I think, also said this is going to set up Conor versus Floyd too. I'm like, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. Floyd is not going to step in the octagon. Knock on wood. Please don't let it happen. I do not want to see Floyd. Like, Conor needs to fight Khabib. Conor doesn't need to fight Floyd. But anyway, so I think we've talked the conspiracy theory and the lead up to UFC 223 to death.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but it was insanity, and I think we could talk another hour about it too. But it's just That's the main bits of it.
That's the meat and potatoes of the situation.
Hey, you know what? We haven't done this a minute. We need some hashtags. If you have a different take on this and you follow our Twitter handle, which is 2 Guys in a Fight, hashtag us different view UFC 220. No, just do it.
That's awful. That is awful. No, we're not cutting this out either.
Just
we're going to hear this.
Different
the
view.
The fans need to hear what the hell you just tried to came up with. What on earth was that?
Hashtag different view. Let us know what your opinion was on all the shit that happened leading up to UFC 223. Because it was a fucking
different
shit show.
view. All right.